today I've got the great pleasure to speak with Suzi Digby, who's been appointed an OBE in 2007 by the Queen for services to music education. Hello, Suzi.
Hello.
Thank you for your time today. Would it be possible you introduce yourself?
Yes, I'm Suzi Digby. I'm a music educator and choral conductor.
Fantastic. So I've been reading that you were born in Japan and live in different countries. Could you tell us more about your life living abroad?
Yes, well, I come from a long line of expatriates. In fact, we've been expatriates since 1917, when my ancestors moved to China from Russia. So a lot of my background is rooted in the Far East. So I was born in Japan, and then we moved to Taiwan, where my sister was born.
Mm-hmm.
And then we came back for a few years to the UK, but then I returned when I was 21 to live in Hong Kong for several years, 12 years altogether. And so it was a really formative time, those 12 years in Hong Kong.
Yes, I guess. Have you met anybody that really changed your life, you will say? How did you come up to learn music?
Yes, I suppose the biggest influence in early years was my father, who was very, very passionate about music, generally passionate about the arts, and had a real thirst for knowledge and a deep appreciation of music. So I grew up with that passion, so he would take me to concerts a lot. I started singing from the age of 3 and never really stopped. And I went to literally hundreds of concerts, classical music concerts, from a very, very young age, sort of tailing after my father. But over the years, there have been some very influential people. I suppose one of the early influences, who then became a very dear friend, was Sir David Wilcox, who was really the grandfather of choral music in the UK. But other people have been very influential too. My conducting teacher, he's a great Hungarian master called Peter Erdei, who's head of choral studies at the French Liszt Academy. And he was a powerful influence. And then posthumously, Zoltán Kodály, who was a Hungarian music educator. And I became a great follower of him and his work, his practices, his philosophy, and his methods, which I then applied to English schools later on.
Yes, so I've been reading that your passion is to get the nation singing. Is that correct?
Yes, I'm a bit of a world changer. I have a sort of impulse to change the world, and one of the things I really wanted for all children was what I had. And I have a big affinity with children, particularly children up to the age of puberty, really, when they are such sponges and they respond so well to music education. And so a lot of it I think I did subconsciously when I first came back to the UK in the early 90s.
Mm-hmm.
So I went into communities and got people singing. I went into schools and got people singing. I was very interested in the hard-to-reach communities. I was very interested in the uninitiated, if you like, people who had no confidence in their ability to sing, and to experience their complete elation when they realised they could sing. And so I specialised in repertoire that could get people singing at a sophisticated level really, really quickly when they thought they couldn't sing. So I went into all kinds of environments. I went into inner city schools. I worked with elderly people. I worked with business people. So I worked at various levels getting people singing. Schools and communities, but also choirs.
Yeah.
So all levels of choirs, very good amateur choirs, and of course in this country we have an extraordinary tradition of very high-level amateur choirs who can really perform at a professional standard, and professional choirs young choirs, old choirs, choral societies. I did a national series of workshops for parents, and of course my Voices Foundation took me to create communities of singing in schools. So the dinner ladies, the teachers, the governors, the parents, bringing everybody together within a community to unite through singing.
So you will say that singing really helps to create a community, and what else?
Well, I think that is one of the unique aspects of singing, is that you can express a common emotion without having to socialise. And it's an extraordinarily strong, sort of almost embedded instinct that we have to unite through singing. Singing comes from a different place than speech. It's actually, now we've studied the brain a little bit, singing is a right brain activity and speech comes from the left side of the brain. And we've always known this instinctively, those of us who work with young people in singing, but it's very nice to have that reinforced by science. And so there's something spontaneous about singing. For example, in a football match, nobody says, "Now you will sing." They just spontaneously sing because it's actually the only way to unite. And particularly if you're against, a common enemy. But I like to bring people together to sing in a non-competitive environment.
Sure.
And that's a very, very empowering thing to do.
So will you say it's never too late to learn to sing? Or?
I really believe that.
Yeah.
And obviously it's best if people start young, and I think we all have a responsibility to make sure that our children and children in our care all experience singing, because if they don't, I think they're disadvantaged. But it's never too late, and as long as the repertoire is good, is right, and as long as you have experienced practitioners, my experience is that everybody can sing, and I usually come up every day against someone who will say, "I'm the exception. You'll never get me singing."
Correct.
I'm sure you've got everybody else in the world singing, but I'm the exception. And I so often manage to get those people, if they're willing to take the risk, because sometimes it's a big risk. It takes a bit of courage. And then I will gradually get them into an environment where they can sing, and then it's very, very special for them. They can be really elated.
Right, I've been looking on internet. I understand next year in Bradford you're doing a workshop, is that correct?
Oh yes, I am, that's right.
Yes, so do you want to give us more details?
Yes, this is at the invitation of one of my ex-choral scholars in Cambridge. So I've seen through a number of generations of choral scholars in my college at Cambridge, where my husband is president, Queen's College, and one of our organ scholars has gone on to get a very distinguished job, and he's invited me to come and do a day of workshops with their young singers, which I'm really looking forward to.
Yeah, I thought it looks fantastic day. Right, to finish up, would you like to share with us one of your favourite songs, if you have got one?
Well, songs and choral music are slightly distinguishable from each other. So, do you mean a choral piece? Yeah. Well, I often think about that. If I could take away one choral piece, and I think it would have to be Bach. The problem is that the piece that I would choose is actually 3 hours and 20 minutes long, which is the Matthew Passion of Bach. And the choral, in fact the whole work is magnificent, the orchestral parts, the solo parts, and the chorus parts. But the chorus parts themselves, some of the chorales, are just transcendentally beautiful.
Right. Thank you so much, Suzi.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.